In August of 1992, out in an area known as the Woodbury Wildlife Area, western Coshocton County. This Woodbury Wildlife Area is in Coshocton County, and it fingers its way down toward the southwest part of Coshocton County. It is a very large hunting area and fishing area. It's also an area where you can do a lot of hiking. I'm out there August 2nd, 92. It was a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. I also study meteorology, so I know that it was a partly cloudy day and the temperatures were in the low 80s. A lot of people at that point in the time didn't believe Bigfoot was in Ohio, especially the people on the West Coast. And I thought, I'd like to take some what they called B-roll footage and just show people out west, send this to them and say, hey, we've got what you need for a big hairy creature to exist. Animals need three things: food, water, and shelter. And if you have those three elements, any animal can live in that area. So I'm taking this B-roll footage of the lake. And anybody who knows me also knows that I don't videotape over anything. If it's been videotaped, it's kept. I have videotapes in my archives from about 22 years ago. It's making a huge collection of videotapes, but I still have them. In 1992, September of 92, I went and interviewed a colorful character that I call, or his name was Charlie Hunter. I went and interviewed him. Jump ahead, December of 1993. I take the interview off the tape, or off of the rack. I put it into the VCR because it was a nice hot day in 1992 when I interviewed Charlie. It was freezing cold outside in December of 83. I wanted to watch the video and think what it was, like to be nice and warm. So I stick the videotape in the VCR. I'm playing it. I watched Charlie's interview, forward, a little ahead. Here's the video footage from 8/2/92. There's a piece where I stopped momentarily and repositioned myself because I didn't like the angle I was shooting. And straight ahead to the west, as the camcorder, I call your camcorder a second set of eyes, because if you have a camcorder running while you're out there doing research or whatever the case may be, then you have another set of eyes that can see something that you may not have seen when you were there. So what I'm going to do first off, in 1997, John Horrigan, myself, Mark DeWorth, and Chuck Story went to the Pacific Northwest. I was invited to speak at the Sasquatch Symposium at Vancouver, BC. And as we were on the way out there, John was saying, Don, you got to do something with this videotape. You got to make some type of a documentary or whatever. I said, John, I'm not a documentary maker. He said, but you got to do it. You got to make it available for people to see what you got. I said, okay. So this first piece of videotape actually has two clips in it, one from August of 92 and one from April of 1995. Steve will go ahead and roll that, and I'll tell you briefly what
While investigating the habitat of this lake, Piney Lake,
that was an accident, but this was John 10 years ago.
Don inadvertently caught the reflection of a white Sasquatch as it traversed around the perimeter of a lake.
Playing dead.
Yeah.
Once it's dead, it'd be pretty easy.
Watch for reflection in the water.
That other, though, that's pretty weird.
Stuff
right in
that's
here.
Fresh. You're right. It's hard to picture that.
That'll run twice.
Great.
Yeah.
That other, though, that's pretty weird.
Stuff that's fresh. You're right. It's hard to picture that.
That other, though, that's pretty weird.
Stuff that's fresh. You're right. It's hard to picture that.
That's pretty weird.
Stuff that's fresh. You're right. It's hard to picture that.
That's pretty weird.
Stuff that's fresh. You're right. It's hard to picture that.
Okay, Steve.
Pretty weird.
I guess I didn't get it queued up. Later in the video, what we did was, toward the end of that documentary, we had that twice, and then we had the 8/2/92 film twice. So I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Let's go ahead and stick that other videotape in there real quick. The August 2nd, 92 video was worked on by some fellows by the name of the Enigma Project down in Maryland. One of their founders is a guy by the name of Mike Frizzell, and they have a lot of very good video equipment at their disposal. And let's take a look at this videotape and see what they did to the August 2/92 film. August 92, 6:28 p.m., that's the location. It was a full-size VHS Gold Star camcorder. It was converted to digital format, digital 8 format. And this is just normal, just the way it appears on the video. You'll want to watch right in the middle of the screen toward the gravel road. I won't point it out the first time. See if you can see it. Okay, this is apparently 50% of the original speed. This little lake here, we've nicknamed this Sasquatch Lake for obvious reasons. I don't think it has any technical lake. I nickname a lot of landmarks so that we can make future reference to them, you know, if we're going out to do further research. And that's funny how the sounds of the birds, you know, you drop it down 50% and they sound like they're messed up. Watch the middle of the screen, right in this area. And then here we are. These birds are going to sound even worse at 25% of the original speed. It's funny things you can pick out. There's a bird up there, or there was. And on the original tape, you couldn't see that because it was going at normal speed, and that bird was just cruising along. But you can see one of the advantages to not recording over any videotape that you shoot out in the field. I didn't pick this tape off of the shelf 17 and a half months later and say, well, I'm going to find something on this videotape and make it look like a Bigfoot. This has been checked out over and over and over again. I presented it in Vancouver, BC in 1997. Let me tell you something. I wish that thing wasn't on videotape. I wish that I hadn't seen what I did in September of 85 or November of 87. And the reason I say that is because if I hadn't seen it, my life would be a lot simpler. Right up in this area. These fence posts, can we rewind that just a hair and then pause it? I'll point out some details about some of these landmarks. Okay, Steve, right about there. There's 4 dots right there, there, and there. These are fence posts, and take my word for it, these fence posts are 4 feet high. In the background, you see 2 bushes, this one and this one. I call these the 2-tier bushes. This bush is 9 feet high. The top of this individual's head is just a little bit below what the top of that bush is. This bush here is 12 feet. From the camera, give or take 5 feet, to the far side of the road, it's 282 feet. To the near side of that gravel road is 262 feet. I measured the distance that this light-colored individual covered. It covered approximately 28 feet in 1.55 seconds in 4 steps, meaning that there was a distance of approximately 7 feet in between each step, walking down a slight grade. This wasn't a perfectly level road, but it did go down slightly, and it was a gravel road. On the original tape, with the volume turned up just a tad, you can hear each one of the steps that this individual took, crunching the gravel underneath its feet. And for a distance of 262 to 282 feet away, that's quite impressive, and apparently quite a bit of weight under or on top of what those feet are. And John?
I just wanted, Don, I've never seen it at 25% before. I've looked at this videotape. Could we roll it back one more time? Because that Patterson-Gimlin footage, courtesy of M.K. Davis, that we've been showing, it looks like it has long arms, and it's got that Patterson-Gimlin gait.
The arm outstretched?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of suggestions as to what this could be. Number one, I can laugh because I've been out there and seen the area. But number one is a person on horseback. Number two would be a jogger in a completely white suit. And number three would be a person of average size walking down the road looking much larger than what they are due to the angle of the sun when the videotape was shot. I'm not here to convince you that what is on the videotape is a Bigfoot. I'm not here to tell you what's on the videotape is a Bigfoot either. I don't know what it is. All I know is that I was at a location in August of '92. I had the camcorder running. The camcorder was on my shoulder like this, pointing in that direction. I'm walking to the south. That's due west. And there you have it. If you can tell me what it is, I'd be happy to hear your explanation, but I really don't know what it is. The Enigma Project in September of 2001 came out to Ohio. They did extensive research. They did a lot of experimental things with 2x4s connected together with a laser beam. Once the sun got down to a certain angle when you could see the laser beam. I interviewed Mike Frizzell, the founder of the Enigma Project, on my internet radio talk show not too long ago. In fact, it was on August 2nd of this year. Ironically, my show's on Thursday nights, and August 2nd of this year was a Thursday night. So I interviewed Mike because he's the lead investigator for their organization. And he gave some figures on the internet radio show that I hadn't even heard. And if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but if I remember correctly, Mike came to the conclusion, the Enigma Project came to the conclusion after they did the research on the film, that the individual in the film, give or take, that the individual in the film was approximately 7 foot 9 inches tall. So that's the main part of my research. The video, the light-colored thing walking beside the water is next. Don't ask me why. I haven't done any in-depth comparison on it. I just, to me, my main piece of evidence is this videotape. The secondary one is the light-colored thing walking beside the lake. And honestly, I didn't realize until recently when I was showing my wife how light in color it is beside that lake on a very heavy overcast day. When that film was shot in April of 1995, there was thunder in the area. So we were about to get some thunder showers. That thing, as it walked by the lake, as you've seen, was very light in color. It almost looked like a ghost. And let's not go there. You know, Bigfoot's enough of a mystery as it is. And that's my specialty, Bigfoot. Let's just keep it at that. Although if there are any ghost hunters in here, if you're interested in talking about some haunted houses, I've got a few stories I could tell you. Any questions or anything, John?
Don, we had one third piece of footage which you chose not to show tonight. Can you tell us about that? Yeah,
that was, I believe, in September of 1995. I had just acquired a new video camera, and I was in an area known as the Wills Creek Lake area, southern Coshocton, northern Muskingum County. It runs right along State Route 83 in east central Ohio. And I was out there just shooting footage. I wanted to see how good the zoom on this camcorder was. And I'm looking at this high wall off in a distance, so I thought, let's zoom in on this high wall and see what it looks like. You know, let's see what this does. I zoom in closer and closer and closer. I get all the way in, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. There's somebody up there walking around. And lo and behold, there was a light-colored individual up there, person or whatever the case may be, on this high wall. And it looked like that this individual was just moving from point to point and behind this large stacking of rocks. And I don't know if the person or Bigfoot or whatever it was stacking rocks up, but it was in an extremely dangerous area to begin with, because if you've ever been in eastern Ohio, out in the old coal mine territory, where they were not required to fill in what they dug out to get the coal, those high walls can be anywhere from as little as 50 feet to as much as 125 feet straight down. And if I were to fall off of one of them, I hope that's my demise, because I don't know that I'd want to live through the damage that I went through.
Spare, whatever. And I'm wondering if scat samples that haven't been identified as others have been found where there's been something.
Well, it's...
Did you look for that, or hair?
We've looked, when we go to a sighting location...
Hair, something
Yeah, right.
Run into, no, really, I'm not.
No, yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
but,
did you look for that? I'm just.
well, the problem with this footage that I just showed, I discovered it a year and a half later. So if there was white hair out there, it's not likely
It
to,
would be a real advantage,
oh, definitely. But I understand now that you really, when you find white and when you find any type of hair, you have to have roots on it. And then they've got to be able to do, now I've been turned on to an encounter that took place in Columbiana County back in the mid and late 90s in east central Ohio. And the gentleman who contacted me gave me some hair samples. I sent them to Dr. Henner Fehrenbach at Beaverton, Oregon. Fehrenbach come back with the answer that the hair was extremely thin, and if I understood him correctly in his letter, he couldn't match it up with anything that he knew of. And it was like it was almost the color of what you would expect orangutan hair to be. Feces, as far as that goes, I think the only thing you can really determine out of feces is what did the individual eat. I don't, if you find a,
Not true.
okay,
Certain biological material can be determined from that. There are certain microorganisms that are gut specific to animals.
Yes.
So you can find traces of DNA from materials from the cell walls of the stomach, the intestinal lining, as well as, like I said, species-specific microbial animals that are still found in the digestive system.
And didn't Dr. Henry Fehrenbach with the famous line, the reason why you hear howls in the woods at night is because of the length of the sausage, length of the leaves at night. That's why this Sasquatch howls.
that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
A book that I like is called Backyard Bigfoot by Lisa Shield. And she details encounters that living on a ranch, this Bigfoot, she'd be walking a dog on the trail, would actually be observing her. And then left like stick signs, piled up rocks, was communicating with her. And it's her opinion that it's not an ape, it's not Gigantopithecus, it is Homo erectus, which has a brain almost as intelligent or as intelligent as us. And one theory I heard is the thing is very clever, and it buries its poop. It's not an ape. It is an actual intelligent being, and that's it. Homo erectus.
I don't know what the final answer to this phenomenon is, or this mystery. Whether or not it will be solved in my lifetime remains to be seen. To be honest about it, I'm skeptical. I don't think it will be. As John, thank you very much, alluded to being my birthday tomorrow, I must thank you in person for that too.
78
79. Yes, 79.
years old.
Correct. Minus a few, thank you. I don't think it'll be discovered in my lifetime. I'll close it with a few thoughts. To give a shameless plug on my part, the two pieces of video that you've seen this evening, they're incorporated into that DVD video documentary that I have down there. It's approximately 93 minutes long, and if you think John was embarrassed when he saw the few seconds of himself on here, the entire Ohio's Abominable Snowman that we did in 1997 is on that DVD. So if you want to see what he looked like 10 years ago, he's got the same voice, but 10 years ago, he looked a little bit different. Few pounds.
I've been accused of having either too many mirrors or no mirrors, so I'm with that poop on here.
There you go.
Don, one last thing about, Lauren alluded to Bigfoot in Massachusetts. I love being on your radio show, the Sasquatch Triangle. Great radio show. Google that, folks. You listen to Don and I have spoken about classic New England Bigfoot cases. Massachusetts and New Hampshire. I got pulled into New Hampshire Bigfoot sightings in 1998. I met a man by the name of David Smith. And Craig Heinzelman, I don't know if Craig is here tonight. Craig, raise your hand. I guess he didn't make it. He studied some encounters that took place in May of 1977 on two separate instances, 2 nights before a flea market. 2 people reported a camper being shaken by an aggressive entity. And I spoke with David Smith, who relayed this quick story to me, in Stoddard, New Hampshire, north of Keene, New Hampshire, March of 1998. While working dispatch, he had one cab driver by the name of Bobby Joe. She had dropped off her last one of the evening. It was about 2:15, and she got lost down a dead-end logging row. Well, she did a 3-point turn, and as she turned, she backed up into a tree, and she heard a thump. In the glare of the reverse lights, the white lights, she saw that the trunk of the tree had fur on it. So she tried to peel out of there, and she swears that the thing lunged on top of the vehicle and bent the ears of the taxi as she she came, anyway, she told Dave that she saw a squash. And that I always found that story to be fascinating. But if there is a Bigfoot being seen in Massachusetts, I think it's either in the northwestern part of Massachusetts out towards Adams, or along Route 16, the famous Route 16 that most of you got lost coming here tonight on, just north of Connecticut near Thompson, where there have been sightings. So, Don, I want to thank you for your presentation. Don Keating, ladies and gentlemen.